Well, I'm now joined by barrister and writer Stephen Barrett, and a great friend of the show. Stephen, these are extraordinary scenes. We just read through a police banning order issued there by the mayor of the municipal city of Brussels, Philippe Close, accusing people inside of being homophobes, Islamophobes, traditionalists, whatever that means, as if that is a crime, saying that serious public order offences are undeniably going to happen. And yet on the ground there's a scene of bemusement and confusion and a few people milling about. Stephen Barrett, in terms of the legal implications of this is extraordinary, isn't it?
It is quite obviously, on the face of it, a breach of human rights. And what happened before the Second World War was that the continent fell into confusion about basic rights and how everybody ought to behave. And then they behaved appallingly during the war years, many of them. And afterwards, we gave them the Human Rights Convention in order to teach them how to behave. And what's been very interesting is how the Belgian police have just gone along with what this, and I understand he's a relatively minor official. I understand he's not the mayor of Brussels. I think there is one mayor of Brussels, and then there is a level below that of sort of other municipal mayors of little areas, and he's one of those. So he's a relatively low-grade bureaucratic, person, a part of the machine. Yet all of these officers have responded en force. That is quite shocking. We must all thank our lucky stars that there is no crime happening in Brussels today, so that all of these officers are free to police a political event. I think it's a breach of the European Convention of Human Rights. I think it's a breach of what the EU call their fundamental rights. And I'm not an expert on Belgian law, and it's very important that I do not come across in any way as an expert on Belgian law. But I thought I would Google their constitution. And their constitution guarantees freedom of assembly, particularly if it's indoors. They have draw a line between indoors and outdoors, and this is very clearly indoors. And so I think that this is prima facie a breach of the Belgian constitution, although there's an argument there, because the Belgian constitution, in a way that probably we might think is a bit un-PC now, specifies that Belgians have protections rather than everyone, which is, I don't know if what a Belgian court would do, but if they were Belgian, then they'd definitely, in my view, be allowed to have this assembly. The point I'd like to make to your viewers is, and I think it's a really important one, we keep making this mistake of putting fundamental rights into law and thinking that sorts everything. And then everybody sort of dusts off their hands and goes down the pub and just assumes everything's okay. And that was how Germany before the Second World War fell into what it fell into. So they had in their constitution, this is the Weimar Republic, they had fundamental rights like human rights. And they thought that would keep them safe forever from this type of monstrous behavior. We didn't do that. We didn't put it into law and think that the lawyers would look after everything. We talked to each other, and we had basic fundamental principles that we kept, if you like, in the political or the cultural sphere. And as a result, we were better able to prevent this type of thing. And one of the great things from my point of view is watching the British reaction to this, which is almost universally horrific. I mean, these are not in any way extremist political figures. The idea that they are homophobic is absurd. At least one of them is a friend of mine. This is just absurd. What we are seeing is the end result of believing that putting fundamental principles into law will solve everything. It won't. You have to have a very furious rush to the courts. Maybe this time the Belgian courts will get there in time, but not everybody has access to courts. If you believe in fundamental rights, and it's a political position, but I do believe in fundamental rights, you have to protect them properly, which is by having everybody be a part of them and everybody, expressing a political opinion on them, not making them special preserve of lawyers who just, frankly, Martin, we can't be trusted.
Stephen Barrett, well, I certainly trust your expertise and apolitical insight as ever.